Okay. Can you everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. For some reason, my voice is really faint today, so I'm going to struggle to hear you people, but we'll do what we can. Anyways, at 6:30, we have a quorum. We'll call a planning board meeting to order. And Mr. Dwyer,
First
Mr.
up would be,
Zagornik, Mr. Sarzinski, Ms. Maximowski, and Mr. Dunn are all present from the planning board. And the meeting is being recorded. First up for general information, Mr. Dwyer.
that would be Mr. Alcorn from the Chinese Immersion Charter School.
Yes, and I was here, I guess, a month ago or so, and you would, and we were asking about getting, I think, zoning approval for the school at 300 Venture Way. You would ask for a traffic study to see what the impact would be at the 300 Venture Way site. We contracted with Fuss and O'Neill, and you were provided the study. He did a study and gave us a letter, which you got at the last meeting. And so hopefully you've had a chance to review this. And I think this addresses the concern that was raised, but let me know what I might need to do.
So if I could summarize, the Fuss and O'Neill traffic study reported that the traffic impact from the school size would be less than the traffic impact that was already budgeted for Class A office space of the size we previously approved. So there'd be less traffic than we could have had if that was an occupied office building.
Sounds good.
So I'll make a motion to waive further site plan approval with the caveat always that this does not excuse you from compliance with other applicable regulations such as building code, public safety, etc.
Second. Mr. Dunn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mark seconded it.
Okay, second. Okay. Any other discussion or comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Mr. Zagornik, roll call vote.
Aye.
Dwyer, aye.
I'm Mike Sarzinski, aye.
Mr. Dunn, aye.
Mr. Sarzinski,
Aye.
Mr. Maximowski, aye. Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
motion is unanimous. Very good.
And do I get something in writing that says this has been approved, or how does that work?
Jim will send the building inspector an email confirming that we've waived further site plan approval. So you can now proceed to work with the building department.
Okay, thank you.
What's the street number on?
Yeah, building and fire department will have their comments and everybody else. I don't know if the Board of Health gets involved in that or not.
So 300 Venture Way, Mark.
300. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have, I see we have two people, but it's under the name of James Palmier.
Hi, William. Yes, I'm James Palmier. This is my Zoom on my computer, but this is my partner Jack Damala. Hi there.
Welcome. What can we help you with?
So we're looking to meet with you all to talk about zoning and planning for a new home business. I spoke with Dee Dee on the phone a couple weeks ago, and she had mentioned that we would need to attend a planning board meeting with you all in order to discuss our plans and ideas further with you in order to gain a business certificate. So we've prepared a lot of details and certainly want to be able to provide any answers to any questions in order to give you guys a better understanding of the work that we'll be doing and the scope. When I did speak to the town, they mentioned that our location is in a limited business zoning area. And so, we've had a chance to look at the town's website, familiarize ourselves a little bit more with the details, and definitely want to make sure that, we're in line and operating in such a way where we're able to gain that business certificate and your approval.
Could we
What
get
is the
the
street address?
address, please?
It's 333 River Drive.
Okay.
Where is 333?
It's right next door to Carl's Excavating.
Okay.
Is it the house there on the bend, the old Konechny house?
Yes, correct.
What do you want to do?
What's your
So
business
we're
plan?
looking to do home improvement consulting and furniture and home essential fabrication. We have a small home workshop in our basement that we're looking to do some building of objects from small candle holders all the way to large desks.
How large is your building? I mean, how many square feet is your building?
In the workshop itself.
Yes, the portion of your property that you're using for business purposes, how big is it?
It's 300 square feet.
Will customers be coming to you? Is there parking for them?
There is parking in the driveway. We have a 2-car garage and also a space to the side of the garage. We park both of our vehicles in the garage, so the driveway is wide open. And we anticipate having a customer or two about once or twice a week, I anticipate.
Do you have a plot plan to show us if there's adequate parking and so on and so forth, and where will your sign be?
Sure. I mean, we can certainly draw up a plot plan and provide measurements. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, it should be to scale and show property lines, other.
Did you buy this property recently?
Yes, April 2023.
Okay, so a plot plan, mortgage inspection plot plan would have been done at the time you purchased it.
Okay.
So you already have it. That's what we want to see.
Okay. Very good.
If it does not show your driveway, some do, some don't, depending on which surveyor produced it. If you could just fill that in to scale, but the plot plan will give us the dimensions of your lot and the layout.
Okay. Very good. And if the driveway's not shown, should we just do like a hand drawing as best as we can?
Yes, that should be okay within what we don't want is a completely free-handed sketch of everything, but
Sure.
adding a driveway to the existing layout should be fine.
Okay, sounds great.
And the location and size of your sign when you come back with the plan.
Sounds good. Location and size. We have an anticipated size of no more than 2 feet by 2 feet. It would be a freestanding post, which I know is allowable up to 1 per property. It's certainly not going to be a billboard. It's really just so that we have an opportunity to display a logo that's associated with the address.
Okay.
Where are you going to advertise?
A majority of the advertising will be done virtually in digital media, and hopefully some written distribution within the community.
So I think mainly what we'll be concerned about, it's in the limited business district. This is within the size limits for a business there. It is a special permit process. So there will be, you can email me at planning@hadleyma.gov. I will
Okay.
send you the application and you can consult the bylaw for the special permit process for limited business.
Okay,
Does the business have a name?
it does. It's J2 Living Company, LLC.
J2?
Yes, J and the number 2.
So I'll tell you that you'll find that at least 4 of us are very familiar with the location.
Okay.
As we live within or have lived within a half-mile radius of that location.
Okay.
I can tell you, I know from experience, it's a blind drive, at least when you're coming from the south, and
Right.
So it sounds like, and I don't want to prejudge anything, it sounds like your proposal as it stands now is probably not going to be a problem there. But to the extent that you grow and have more traffic, that's a really tough spot to have cars pulling in and pulling out, as I'm sure you are well aware.
We are. We're very aware.
I go by
I
there
think-
twice a day, so I'm very sensitive to it. So this at a scale of 1 to 2 visitors, 1 to 2 customers a week, that's probably just fine. If you get and we hope you do well. But if you really do well, you may want to be looking at another location, because you don't have a lot of places to put cars and you don't have good sight lines there.
Right, right. And I think that was something that we recognized, early on, and and something to consider in the future. I think when we get to that point is going to be something that we'll discuss at a later point.
Yep, that's fine. But it's a limited it's a limited site.
Right.
Yeah, just drop me an email. I'll send you the application.
Okay.
The bylaw has both the limited business rules and the special permit rules. So
Okay.
basically it involves you need to get us a names and addresses of abutters and abutters to abutters within 300 feet of the property. The assessor's office has a program that will determine that for you. And I believe they may even be able to provide you with mailing labels. We'll need 2 sets of those, because we have to send a formal notice to each of your abutters. And then we have to send each of your abutters a notice of decision after we've had our public hearing. It does require a public hearing.
Okay.
And we also have to do a newspaper ad. The filing fee will be based predominantly on the cost of mailing and on the cost of the newspaper ad, which is all over the place, but it's probably something in the $350 range.
Okay. And
The last few newspaper ads have been closer to $450. So
the advertisement, could you explain that further? what
It is
for?
part of the statutory requirement for a special permit. That we have to notify the abutters and we have to publish a legal notice in the newspaper
Mhm.
in advance of the public hearing. So if you had everything ready for us at our next meeting, which will be
On the 18th,
the 18th,
right?
we would anticipate that we would be able to schedule your public hearing for July 16th. Basically a month after you file a complete application. And this is because the legal notice has to be published twice once a week for 2 consecutive weeks, and there's lead time to get it into the newspaper. So basically we schedule a public hearing a month after you file a complete application.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, if you haven't been through the legal ads in the paper, it's a very dry section. It'll just list address, description of the hearing,
Karen,
date and time.
And then in terms of the business certificate, that is a special separate fee outside of the advertisement, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and I believe we read that as $40. Is that correct?
That is not our department.
It's not. Okay.
No, I don't know whether that's something coming out of the building department or out of the clerk's office.
Okay. And just to have a clear understanding of the next steps that we'll need to take at this point, we will provide a plot plan, which can be acquired from the town. Is that correct?
No, you probably have it already
In
in
the
the
closing documents, yeah.
closing documents from your purchase.
Okay, so then I definitely have that available. And then
You go over those regularly, don't you? Just to relive the fun of the closing.
Oh yes, yeah. I couldn't agree more. No, I know they're referenceable at home at least. So I'll have to go and take a look. And then the request for the special permit will be sent to you by email, and then you'll send an application.
I'll send you the application.
Okay, very good.
Then from the application, we'll get the cost for the public hearing and the mailings, and we'll email you the application back with the fee you would pay to the town clerk.
Okay, now the fee is non-refundable, I'm assuming, regardless of the outcome.
That is correct.
Okay. On first glance, and just from this conversation, I mean, is there doubt that there would be an approval?
It doesn't look like there are any red flags other than the sight lines, but again, you have a very low expected volume, so.
Okay.
Yes, we would, if it were even allowed, we would probably not be approving a fast food restaurant or a Dunkin' Donuts at that location because of the traffic issues. But apart from that, otherwise, it seems to be an allowed use in the district. So we just have to go through the exercise, and you'll find out how much your neighbors love you.
That sounds good.
Knessner used to sell Indian corn there.
Sorry, say that again, Michael.
Chet Knessner used to sell Indian corn there, so he was a quote unquote farmer, but he worked for the Department of Agriculture.
I see. Okay. Are there any other questions or details that we can provide you at this point? Yes, go ahead.
Edie has a question. Go ahead.
Well, Actually, I have an answer. Yes, so you will go to the town clerk with, to get your form and have it filled out. And then you come to the building department and then we'll sign off on it. And then you have to go back to the town clerk, which is just the doorway away. And then you take care of that. And I do believe it is $50.
Okay, and that's for the business certificate.
Correct.
But
Okay,
you can't do that until after the special permit.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Just would rather have kind of a good timeline and understanding of, the process, just so we know where we stand.
So it takes a month to schedule the hearing,
Okay,
assuming that the application is complete and there are no neighbor objections. You could anticipate that we might be able to vote on it the night of the meeting. And then I have to file the decision with the town clerk, and then there's a 20-day appeal period after that. So basically, you have to budget 2 months.
2 months. Okay.
And you're not doing anything to the building. I'm just wondering if we need elevations. You're not changing anything.
On the exterior?
Yeah, yeah.
No, we're not. There aren't any modifications. Everything is interior.
Now, I would say that this is because you're trying to run a business out of the house. If you make product and deliver it elsewhere and don't have customers coming to the house,
Correct.
that's fine. You can keep on keeping on. It's what triggers the site plan approval really is that extra part of you want to have customers.
And that's something that we've considered, in the decision making of, how our client relations would be. And I think a majority of the sales front would be done at trade shows, markets, vintage shows, even most recently at Paradise City in Northampton. Really to drum up a lot more visibility in areas where there are big groups of people. And then the remainder would be off-site. When we're working with clients for home improvement consulting, we're going to their site. They're not coming here because we're providing services where they are. So I guess what I can say is, in terms of future growth, considering the sightline issue and reducing foot traffic, I think that's something that we would definitely keep in mind to make sure that as the business grows, that doesn't become an issue.
Well, take a look at section 20 of the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
And especially section 20.2.
Okay.
If you do not have clients or customers at the property, you would qualify for what's called a home office, and that does not require a special permit.
Okay, and then the special permit would take out the public hearing and other process,
Yes,
and
yes.
the butters process.
So, yes. So take a look at section 20. That
Okay.
outlines 2 uses. One is we call home office, a vocation, trade, small business, craft, art, or profession, which can be conducted entirely within the main or an accessory building of the property. No employees other than full-time residents of the home. No outward manifestations of a business, and no clients or customers may be seen at the property. No goods may be sold on the premises.
Okay.
If you fall in, if you can conform to the home office rules, You just need to basically register with the building inspector. We do not have to hold a public hearing. We do not have to file a notice in the newspaper.
Okay.
If you, since you're in the limited business district already, the other use, which we call home business, does require a special permit. And that is because you're bringing the public to you and you're increasing your impact. Right now, I'm assuming this is probably you've been doing this for a while, maybe since you moved in.
Yeah, we have.
And if you can conform to the home office rules, you just need to let the building inspector know you're running a home office.
Okay.
And then you don't have to come back to us.
So we would need to speak to the building inspector.
Read the bylaw.
Okay.
And section 20, and see if you fit into if you can fit into the home office definition, you're done with us. You just need to let the building inspector know you're doing that.
Okay.
We're not trying to
Right, because
persuade
right
you.
now, sorry.
We're not trying to persuade you. We just want to make sure you understand your options, that you don't feel like you have to go through the, full special permit.
Right. And no, and that's greatly appreciated. So thank you for giving us that option. I'll highlight right now, we don't have foot traffic. We don't have people who are coming here. Really, I think more than anything, the idea of this involvement is to make sure that we're above board. And certainly if we can conform to those particular standards in that bylaw, then that would be something that we could consider. But at least now we know our options, which is really helpful. So thank you.
It's easy to adjust to the home occupancy section of the law. But if all of a sudden you have people coming there and all of a sudden the neighbors start to get upset, it appears that if you get the full package in the beginning, or there were any controversies or neighbors complaining, consider that option.
Okay, thank you.
Because most businesses, if they're doing well, obviously will grow. So if you grow and take initially the easy way out, it's going to be much more difficult to convince the neighbors that you're not being a nuisance in the neighborhood.
Right.
That's kind of my limited advice.
Thank you. Noted.
So just let us know what you want to do.
Sounds great.
You don't have to decide tonight.
Well, we certainly have a lot to think about and talk about. So we'll plan on reaching out to you when we have some more information. And depending on what direction we're going in, we're not looking to waste time. So certainly want to get everything that you need in a timely manner.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today.
You're welcome.
Great.
Take care.
So if I could just make I see we have Jack Denninger from Fuss and O'Neill. And we have already met with Mr. Alcorn. So I think you're free to go unless you're here for something else.
Yeah, I'm actually here with 0 Point for the special permit at Zero
Okay.
Bridge. I did find it funny when the first agenda item was a Fuss and O'Neill project.
Okay. All right, then we'll go on. The next in for general information was Chris Anderson. who, yes, Chris Anderson. Are you here for the public hearings or for to,
I'm here for the preliminary subdivision plan for the public hearing.
okay. How about Ryan Little? Question for the planning board or public hearings?
Question for the planning board.
You're up.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm here. We got Al Graziano is on the line, and John Steflos for Dave's Hot Chicken, representing Dave's Hot Chicken going into 5 South Maple Street at that old People's Bank. Quickly talking with Dee Dee. She said first step on the docket before going in for a permit submission is to check in with the planning board. So here we are. I know we sent an email with a couple exterior renderings as well. William, I'm not sure if that has been reviewed yet. With the team, there is some minor exterior modifications to the existing building. And we would like.
If you'd like to share your screen and put those up.
Yep, give me 1 second. Can everyone hear my screen? See my screen? Sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. This was if you look to the, right side of the entrance, that was the old main entrance of People's Bank. You can see the plan is, quickly is, to paint the building not kind of like a stark white. And then possibly erect a couple of these towers on the exterior of the building, and ultimately having professional artists come in and kind of do a unique exterior representation of what the brand kind of represents, a new trendy fast casual out of California. And this fast casual, it serves chicken tenders, chicken sandwiches, milkshakes. Very popular, taking over the country, especially the Northeast. We would like to keep the drive-through as well over here, and just kind of would like some guidance as we go into the permit submission. I got another rendering I'd like to share too of the rear of the building, which would actually be our main entrance.
I think you're going to hear pretty quickly that if the graphics are part of your branding, then that's considered within your sign area limitation. So that's going to be a problem.
Okay.
Hey Ryan, let me just chime in real quick. So this is Al Grazzi. I'm the owner coming in, and so that paint and design is all done custom. So there's various levels to it. So if it needs to be watered down, like I can in the chat, I can also put in some pictures of other examples where, like in Manchester, New Hampshire, for example, with similar towers, where we went with a solid color on the towers, and then did more of the lighter design work on the sides where you see the stark white. So obviously we want to work with the town to get to something that's more agreeable. The landlord, it is also the separate point of the zoning too. So the landlord didn't mention to us that this may not be zoned for the use of a restaurant just yet. So it's probably the more pressing issue at the moment. But if you guys are willing to work with us on the paint, because it is a huge part of our brand.
Let me clarify the bit about zoning.
Okay.
Restaurant isn't allowed use. However, a change of use from bank to restaurant triggers site plan approval. We have authority to waive site plan approval if there are minimal exterior alterations to a site that has already been approved.
Okay.
I'll tell you, this one was the bank was approved more than 20 years ago, probably close to 25 years ago. I don't think there've been any complaints since then, but it looks like you are proposing some exterior alterations. which may affect your parking calculations.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, our ultimate goal obviously is to make it look like a restaurant rather than a bank. So, you know, obviously having some changes that we feel, you know, may be necessary. And obviously we tried to get ahead of this as soon as possible. You know, Ryan, our GC, does a great job. So we're well ahead of us even starting, obviously, in the planning portion on our end. So we just want to get your insight on what you guys need.
So,
So that way we can.
what comes to my mind is that the tower potentially raises your sign above the roof level, which is a violation or not permitted. It's hard to tell the scale, but you have 64 square feet amongst all of your signage.
In total, you're saying 64 square feet?
Total.
Okay. Yeah, and then those towers can come down as well. You know, those are all things. This is more of a design rendering rather than a, you know, full-on scale rendering. So that way, you know, again, we didn't want to get too far along without having approval from the town, of course. So, you know, those towers can come down, signage can become a little smaller, and it can all really just abide by all of your rules. And our intent with that one tower isn't to go above the roof line. You know, we're seeing, like right now with Ryan showing this, it shows a little more detail. The intent is for it to be below that top point.
The tower is still not conforming because you'll have the sign will be basically on the roof. So that's a noble attempt. I knew you would be anticipating some concern. You just have to read the bylaw, amount of space that's available. And Bill is correct that the next concern is parking and where the people will park in the drive-through.
Well, there's already the existing drive-through lane, so we wouldn't be changing any lane for the drive-through. We'd actually be, you know, eliminating one lane, which provides more access to get in and out than the bank had. And then two, you know, my question, just off of what you just said, with the sign being on the roof, can you explain what you mean the sign being, you know, on the roof? So our intent here is to create a wall with that tower up. It wouldn't be necessarily part of the roof.
It's a good try, but
well, take a look at the bylaw. The bylaw talks about not above the roof line, and I guess we have to decide what your roof line is there.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
the roof line is the eaves, so that's the beginning of the roof lines.
The parking requirement is 2 square feet of parking for each square foot of business floor area, and you apparently are proposing some outside seating. So that becomes part of your business floor area for the parking calculation.
Yep.
So you have a larger parking requirement than the bank did. You'll have to let us know, you'll have to show us that you're still satisfying the site parking with that enlargement.
Is this individual parcel or is this part of the whole mall complex?
It is part of the mall, but it was a leased parcel.
That's
So
correct.
I think that they had a lease line and they need to conform within their lease line.
Okay.
There's also really no other place to go because of the way the parking lots are channeled around there. There's it's not like they have unfettered access to all of a parking field for other buildings. The parking for this site is channeled into this site, and otherwise they'd be parking next door at Sleepy's or something, or behind LL Bean.
Yeah, and let me ask you this, just to get some, you know, insight from you guys. So if we were to adjust the roof line and redevelop that structure from the roof line, that would allow us to go a little higher on the sign versus the current approach by putting a tower. Am I understanding that correct?
Yeah, depending on how your gable ends are, you might be able to have a sign on the wall at the gable ends. It's awkward massing to, but yeah, we encourage you to review the sign bylaw in detail.
Okay.
Yeah, Al, that's something, let's consult with Greg Ralph, our architects on. Absolutely, and we'll bring up the parking calculation as well, which actually our footprint is actually getting smaller inside, so with the service line, so we might be okay, but we will confirm.
But we count business floor area, so it's not just where your seating area is, but your prep area, your storage areas.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically, your entire footprint, which in this case exceeds the banks because you're creating an outdoor dining area.
Correct.
So, yeah, just a quick question. Even if we're going to be limiting, we're going to have a far less amount of people, in the space eating in, because we do more of a takeout business. So you still include, obviously you said you include the kitchen and everything, but the use isn't entirely the same as the bank either.
Will there be a dumpster?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we require the parking for the business floor area of the structure.
Okay.
We don't do it by use, so we don't have different requirements for a bank or a restaurant.
Okay, understood. We'll gather that information. Come at you guys with all of that.
One other quick question. Going from a change of use, does this trigger any special permit process?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you want to have hyper technical, site plan approval is a special permit. But we have authority to waive further site plan approval if the changes are minor to the structure. If you're changing the use but not expanding the structure, you're in waiver territory. So no, it probably will not trigger site plan approval, but we just need to reach an agreement on what conditions will make us feel comfortable waiving further site plan approval.
Okay, and you guys stated earlier too that any exterior colorful, I'll say, graphics that are outside of what we would consider illuminated signage that could be considered in the signage package. What was the allotted square footage again? Was it 64 square feet?
64.
Does that include a pylon sign as well? Right now, there's 2 existing pylon signs that the bank used. Would that be included, or is that just building signage?
You get 1 pylon sign at 64 and structure sign 64, which you can divide up however you want.
Up to 4 signs on the building. But the total can't exceed 64 square feet on the building.
Wow.
I think I did say early, if the graphics were construed, were considered to be part of your branding, which was what you said in the beginning, that's where that then falls under the 64 square feet. In the last few years, we did LL Bean, and they wanted to do something on the side of their building, and we came to agreement on an image that was not necessarily their branding.
That was just a mural on the side of the building.
Right.
If these pictures that you're depicting are part of your brand, then that's considered part of the picture. The signage.
Yeah, the pictures are unrelated to our brand. Like we're our logo is the chicken head. So these pictures are just, to bring visibility because, that's what the brand is trying to do. Just be a little bit more, I don't want to say flashy, but just draw attention to it. Like these actual designs have no connection to our chicken business at all.
It's definitely flashy.
Yeah, I don't try to say it wasn't. It definitely is.
If you were down the road about a mile and a half, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. Which is a difference called the village overlay district, but you're in a different district and
Yeah.
those pictures are not prohibited, if you would.
Yeah, so the brand does do murals that are again like LLB and unrelated, but just more as a mural. So with that being said, would that be more allowable than something like this?
Well, I mean, you've seen the mural on the side of LL Bean. Yeah, if there was like he has a true picture. These are just, I mean, I don't want to say it's not art. I'm not an artist, so I don't dare disagree or
Yeah, of course.
I don't dare insult anybody by saying that because I know
Abstract art.
artistry.
I'm not drawing it, so you're not offending me. So don't worry. I get what you're saying. But there are some locations that have a mural that almost exact in terms of design as LLB, and that's something that is an option for us to replace something like this. So with that information, at least we can present that to you all and just obviously make sure it's acceptable.
But the big thing is that the signs can't exceed the top of the roof, and of course, in this case, the roof is a big, tall hip roof. So
Yeah.
just make sure that the top of the Dave's Hot Chicken there, the one you show on the face with the chicken, doesn't exceed the height of the roof.
Okay. Yeah. The pylon obviously helps as well because that's a big one. So we'd have to get rid of the second one, which is fine. But obviously we'll utilize that for a bigger piece of signage and then get you guys something that's more acceptable for the building itself.
Pylon would not be acceptable as far as I can see. It's just an excuse for making the sign higher. So we've ruled on those a number of times in town.
I'm sorry, what would be not acceptable for the pylon?
I think he meant the
The tower?
accent wall.
Adding the wall
Oh no, yes, I'm not calling
taller
it a pylon.
so that you can utilize it as a sign.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I'm talking about the pylon that's existing from the bank.
At the roadside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not categorizing that
Yeah.
tower as a pylon.
I'm not sure quite why they have two. We'd have no objection to a smaller directional sign at the actual entrance to the parking lot. I don't recall why there would be two pylon signs, but the sign bylaw was substantially rewritten a dozen years ago after the bank had gone through its site plan approval process.
Yeah, now it's a plan. Have a directional sign. We're gonna have a height bar for the drive-through as well. Things of that sort. If that's acceptable, but that works for us. The drive-through. Ryan, you got anything else?
The only other thing, or a couple other, just quadruple checking here. Potentially either a red trim or an illuminated kind of light strip around the underside of the roof line. Would that be acceptable? I think Applebee's has one.
Halo lighting is allowed, but internally illuminated signage is not.
But is red their branding color? That's the thing. It would be, and certainly the lighting, it would not be acceptable because Texas Roadhouse tries something like that, and we said it was not acceptable.
What about
Wow.
just a painted red strip? We just want to bring a little accent.
That's questionable in my mind. It's your branding color.
It's our color is red. Yeah, it's the most important color. So just getting some direction. So
I don't think the signs or the branding is gonna make much difference. You're gonna have some competition next door, and if you sell a better product, you'll have more business than Popeyes.
We will.
yeah, no, of course, and we're not entirely worried about Popeyes. We open near a ton of those. We're just it's tough because every one of our locations needs to have some sort of branding so people know we're a Dave's Hot Chicken on the building itself. So we're just trying to find something that we can work on with you guys to make that.
Well, our concern is we don't want your whole building to become a sign.
No, understood. I'm just trying to figure out. So is the red light something that's not acceptable or something that could be potentially acceptable?
If it's part of your structural design, if it's something that shows up on all your other buildings, we consider it part of your branding and part of your signage. If you want to put an accent strip up that is perhaps a different color, just for architectural highlights, that's a different story, perhaps. We'd just like to see what you're proposing.
Yeah, no. So you're saying if it's not, or so if we do like white, for example, which is not a brand color, that'd be a little bit more
If
acceptable.
you wanted to put zebra stripes around to highlight the building, that's probably something we'd be okay with if you're okay with it.
But no, all right, perfect. We can definitely get something that would make sense for everybody here.
So if they were McDonald's and they wanted to do their gutter trim all in yellow, that would be branding.
If they wanted a sign much over the roof line. And Dunkin' Donuts in Williamsburg is very modest, isn't it, Mike, compared to the one in Hadley?
Exactly. And
Well, our goal here is to make sure
So
everybody's happy.
the branding argument, we've heard that before, and it's a noble effort on your part to promote your brand, but sometimes it doesn't cut through the bylaw.
No, we're certainly not trying to cut through the bylaw. I'm just trying to be honest with you guys. So I figured it'd be better than trying to lie, right?
Before you leave, I have to ask you, instead of coleslaw, a kale slaw, is that?
It's the healthy option. You're getting fried chicken, so you have to opt
And if,
kale, you know?
well, Popeyes has great coleslaw.
We have great kale slaw.
There's chocolate and vanilla.
How do you
in one.
disguise kale so that it is tasty? Yes, really, I would like to see how you do it.
All in the mayonnaise.
It's impressive. It's impressive.
It's all in the
Dave-
sauce.
Dave
It's all
did a
in
great
the
job.
mayonnaise.
I said the same thing, honestly. I was like, I'll stick with the mac and cheese, and I tried the kale slaw. And I'm like, wow, he somehow figured this out. It's like a magic trick.
Okay.
You know?
When romaine lettuce had their wisteria scale, and if you ordered a Caesar salad and they substituted kale, there was not enough salad dressing in the world to
And I agree with you on that. I definitely agree with you on that. We don't put too much, trust me. There's a fine line to having too much kale. So I'm with you on that.
If Mr.
You're in the
Mr.
Happy Valley, so I think you're gonna sell a lot of it.
If Mr. Zagrodnik comes out as a dead against kale, he may have to recuse himself.
Okay, that's right.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time and the
Thank you.
advice and all this. It definitely helps us get at least something more.
Good luck.
We wish
Appreciate
it would, yeah.
I got one more thing just as a
Okay.
closing. No worry. We got the action item list in front of us. We're gonna go back to the design team and the powers that be. Moving forward too, when we review bylaws, parking, we come to an internal agreement of how we're gonna move forward. Will we have to be present for the next meeting and present again before going in for permit? Or is there any other meetings that can be set up prior to the next scheduled?
Well, we meet the first and third Tuesday of every month. The next meeting is June 18th. So if you come back to that meeting with this stuff addressed and everything is kosher, we could give you an approval that night and you could go to the building inspector or whatever powers may be for the next day and apply for your permits that are needed.
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
So yes, you do have to come back to us.
Noted. That's it. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody. Have a good night.
You're still sharing. Yeah.
Stop it. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, so, see who's. Okay, people are dropping out. So, Bustin O'Neill is here for, Tom Corbett is here for that, and, Chris Anderson, likewise, you're on ZP.
A question or a statement, Mr. Dwyer?
I was asking if he was with, the public hearings.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay. All right. With that said, we will continue the public hearing from March 19th for Tom Corbett and 0 Point. Mr. Corbett. Or who is going to present?
Good evening, how are you? Tom Corbett, 0 Point Development. I have Jack Denninger here as well from Fussin O'Neill. So the last time we had met, we were waiting, we had pushed out to today, in order for you guys to go through some bylaw motions. So now we're back here again. And I have submitted some revised documents to you all, back on 5/23, you guys received a revision to all of our documents, essentially site plan, stormwater. There was a spill management plan added in that was associated with the BCI containment measure around the system. There was a memo on ethylene glycol from Fussin O'Neill, LSP. And I think that was all for the resubmitted documents. So Berkshire Design has looked at everything. They peer reviewed it all. You've received that letter as well. So that's kind of where we're at. I can go over anything plan wise that you would like to see.
How about, since it's been a while, giving us an overview of the revisions,
Yeah, well, I can run through that.
or show us the whole thing, highlighting the revisions.
Yeah, for sure. Let me pull that up. I might have Jack jump in a little bit here, but let me share my screen first. So revision wise to the plan, can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Revision wise to the plan from the original drawings that were submitted back in February. The general layout of the system has kind of just shifted a little bit. We aligned it a little bit better with the lot lines and just positioning of everything, for incorporating the containment measure into it. So this dotted line around the pads here delineates where that containment measure will be subsurface. And then from this area here, which is better shown on another plan, but I want to show you on the aerial, from about this corner here, the drainage will then go out to where the existing kind of, I don't want to call it a basin, but runoff goes to that crosses the road through that culvert that we are looking to improve. Access is from Breckenridge Road here. The electrical interconnection point hasn't been nailed down with Eversource quite yet. So we have it depicted here as a pad layout as we have it submitted with them. So those are all pad mounted equipment, electrical connect to the three-phase power on the street. Let me just trying to zoom out here. It won't let me control click it. So overview of limit of work here is our hard dotted line here. As you can see, we've got the driveway depicted here coming in with that interconnection. Right now it's proposed here. It may eventually go on this side of the road, depending on what Eversource decides. That becomes a question of angle coming across the road realistically when they get out on site to see what it's all about. So then we come in the existing driveway here and enter into the site through a double gate here. Our equipment within the fence there are 4 pads on the, I'll call it the southern side of the plan here, that depict the pads that hold the energy storage systems. There are 2 containers per pad. They go back to back, where they face each other front to front. They are separated by 10-foot distance, 10 foot on all sides to the fence line and to other equipment. In this case, just above them, we have a 24-foot drive aisle for a truck to back in. And then we've got our inside of our system components, which would be the meter and recloser, are these 2 pieces of equipment here. And then there's a control panel that has our power coming into the site and getting distributed to the rest of these pieces of equipment here. And then we've got just our general hookup, just like a solar field is. It's all an inverter, 2 inverters, 2 inverter pads, and a transformer. So as you can see, that's about the fence layout there. So I think in our previous drawing, it was just kind of twisted a little bit, and we've just aligned it a little bit differently to encompass the secondary containment, which, so if we look at this page here, you can see the outline of that containment right there. And that would be subsurface. There's a detail on the last page that kind of goes over how that's layered in there. But essentially that geomembrane liner would be subsurface. This one in particular, I'd have to look at the detail. I think it's a foot. So we've got a 12-inch minimum to the pipe edge, so it's about 1.5 feet total to the top of the liner to the base. So that liner gets installed in a manner which I provided some BCI documentation. That's Basic Concepts Inc., who are the people to go to for these types of systems. So they have the geomembrane liner goes in the ground first, well, some pea stone underneath, sorry. And then the geomembrane liner goes in. And then they put a fabric down and then stone inside of that. So that holds the volume of anything that would run off of the containers or in or around the containers. And then that would go to a vault, which is shown here in this corner here, that would normally be open to daylight. So in normal operation, rainwater would be able to exit freely through the drain pipe. And Jack can get a little bit into the drainage there afterwards, but it is normally open. Upon, say, a fire on the system, there would be a trip switch or a manual switch, however that may be set up, that's to be designed. That it could go either way. This site here, I think, would most likely be an automatic valve. So the valve here would be normally open, and upon losing power or getting power, however the switch is set up, it would shut. And then from there, that would create the bathtub to the volume that is calculated based upon loss of rock space and pad space, what have you. So that's kind of the general design of the system, what we're looking at as far as containment. And I'm going to let Jack maybe talk a little bit about stormwater. Jack, you have it?
Yeah. Absolutely. So from what we had previously submitted, due to the slight revision, pulling the system a little more to the northwest, as well as introducing the secondary containment system, we did make some minor tweaks to the stormwater management system. So previously, the pre-treatment for the site for the infiltration basin came with a vegetated filter strip. Now we've removed that and we've introduced a water quality structure, which is that kind of catch basin you can see at the bottom left corner of the system. So like Tom was saying before, the stormwater runoff that lands within that fence line, excluding the secondary containment system, sheet flows over land, gets collected into that grate and passes through a water quality structure to treat the pre-treatment requirements for the stormwater handbook and the town's stormwater bylaw. The stormwater that falls within the secondary containment system itself goes into an underdrain, which goes into the vault like Tom described, which can be shut off if required, but in normal conditions is free-flowing, which is conveyed through that water quality structure. And all of that stormwater runoff is discharged into the infiltration basin, which has been reworked slightly over how it currently is in existing conditions to provide the groundwater recharge and water quality required for the site's improvements. But those are the general changes from the stormwater system when compared to what was previously submitted.
So could you just clarify for me, you have a long dash and two short dash line laying out. Is that your lease line?
This line here.
No, the further to the left.
This?
That one.
That's the property line, and then the one where you see the 50-foot setback call out, the one interior of it are the setback lines for the agricultural residential zoning district.
Okay, so part of your drainage structure is outside the property line?
So the adjacent property is still the same property owner. The current drainage patterns of the site are maintained, so that basin itself is existing today, except there's a culvert end that you can actually see if you zoom in a little more, Tom. There's a dashed line that goes under the road. That isn't the existing drain pipe. That drains from the current existing basin to that same outfall. The improvements we're showing here are to improve that outfall over existing conditions as it's currently stands. So maintaining the current drainage flow patterns of the site by utilizing the existing system, just revamping it and improving it.
So that's on another parcel owned by the same owner.
Correct.
So the one outside the system, the flow is into that system from your system?
So this current basin where you see the topography, currently there's just a pipe that connects from the basin on the right where Tom's hand is and discharges that water to the left where Tom's hand currently is on the screen. That is how it currently stands in existing conditions. That's how it will maintain in proposed conditions. However, we've put a yard drain cover on top. So that pipe is currently at the very bottom of the basin. In order to provide more groundwater recharge and improved water quality, we have now a yard drain cover over that pipe, so the water that flows down from the site is able to recharge into the ground more than it does in existing conditions. At a certain elevation, it'll go into that system and flow as it currently does to that outfall that Tom's over right now. So the peak flow, the stormwater peak flow rates leaving the site at that point are reduced in both peak flow and in volume when compared to how the site is currently, I don't want to say designed, but currently is today.
So it's like a detention basin with an overflow.
Correct. It allows water to pool in it, recharge into the ground, and depending on the magnitude of the storm event, goes into that grate and gets discharged to where it currently does today.
So here's my concern about that. What is your plan are you going to be acquiring this property, purchasing it? Or
no,
are you leasing it?
This is a lease.
Okay. All right, because I'm just concerned that you're relying as part of your system, structures that are not on your property.
Yeah, it's under the same ownership.
I understand that now, but
And it's existing drain, like Jack is saying, the existing drainage, and if I may, I'll.
Well,
switch this
that
over.
may become important because this is all part of your subdivision as well, right? Your proposed subdivision, are you still going forward with that?
Correct, we are.
Then is that drainage system part of your subdivision?
That has not been incorporated into any plans as it has not been approved yet.
Well,
This-
I guess the question is, if you have a subdivision and you have a drainage system, and if you're proposing this drainage, your
So-
subdivision, I mean, they're kind of tied together here, so I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, I hear you.
That because they're separate, but they're still very much related.
So the subdivision has its own drainage features involved with it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah,
We'll
you'll see in a little.
We'll get to the drainage system when the subdivision comes up then, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you here. So like this is existing site here, right? So this is all that grass area that we were just looking at that has the quote unquote basin there. And that pipe comes across the road right here, right now. And just kind of dumps down here. We had gone through the motions with the Conservation Commission. We're not within wetland areas, but we went through and had them come out and look and went through an RDA back in 2021, I think at this point. It's probably coming up on expiring, but they that we had to walk through with them, and at that point in time, I'm not sure if Kayla was there or not at that point in time. And we did a little walk around, and the idea was to improve this outfall and get the site to drain a little bit better, not such a channel. I think if I remember right, it kind of drops a little bit off the end of the pipe, and it kind of channelized. So the intent here is to make a riprap outfall that will make the water overland flow versus a channelized flow back into this field where it's always wet.
yeah, I understand that. What I don't understand is why you're limiting your leasehold to the area of the property lines, since it's in common ownership. I would think that you would extend your leasehold to include that secondary drainage structure.
So it is involved with our lease area. That part of the structure is involved with our lease area because we're required to maintain it. So it is encompassed into our lease. Our lease area jumps the property line.
So I'll give you, okay. The concern we have is we have a certain number of drainage ditches in town that aren't well documented as to easements and who has access to them. And, you know, sometimes property changes hands. Everybody starts out on the same page, and yeah, water is the common enemy. We're all going to work to get it moved out. And then someone starts filling in a drainage ditch with their shrub clippings and dams it up. So that's why I'm concerned that you're showing what appears to be a lease line, which is the long dash, two short dashes, and then this is clearly outside of the lease line. So
Yeah, and okay, I see what you're saying. The property line. This
Yeah.
is a property. This is a
That's
property line.
property line, you're not showing it's your lease line.
This limit of work is our lease line essentially for this area, and it would cross this road most likely.
Okay.
Question.
That the lease area kind of gets done upon an Alta survey, and that's when it's kind of really determined what the actual lease line is. But that will be encompassed into our lease area 100%.
Okay, and then one other question. I believe the fire chief had asked for a hydrant in proximity. Is that provide? I saw there's a dry standpipe
Yeah, so I don't really recall that letter because the last conversation I had with the fire chief what on site, which was quite some time ago. I haven't really gotten back in front of him since we got this application in because I didn't really know where it was going. I didn't want to get too involved. So at that point, I would be having another discussion with him and coming to a conclusion on what is best suitable for him is typically how I go about that with towns is to have a sit down like I had done previously with our prior plan. And at the time then, water up on Breckenridge was sufficient part of the conversation, understanding that things change and industry standards change and just the ideologies around firefighting change for these systems over the past 3 years that I would definitely need to sit down with Chief and review exactly what he might want in order to fulfill his needs.
Are you or are you not providing water to the site?
We can. Right now on this plan, there is not water coming into on this special permit plan. There's no water coming into the site. The water's up on the street, as that was the last conversation with the fire chief.
Okay.
To my knowledge was he was okay with that up on the street. He was gonna I think it was a run a truck up and back. I'm not sure positive on that. I don't want to speak for him and but I can certainly have those conversations with him again. And if his mindset has changed over the course of time, which I'm sure it has, these things change overnight, and kind of review what he might want out of that. Because with the subdivision would be bringing water down the site a little bit anyway. So I'm not opposed to bringing water in, but the way that our fire engineers and our fire consultants at the Energy Safety Response Group handles our emergency response, it is to let these containers burn and not apply water to them. Now, obviously, there's certain circumstances where that might not fly and there might need to be water put on them. There are dry standpipes connect in this kind of gray area here, connected to each pipe, to each container individually. So that would be coming outside of the fence line. And again, to a point, and this is kind of a point that I sit down with them about as well, is like, where's a fair location or the most logical location to put these standpipes coming up out of the ground for connection. So those connections can be, though they should be dictated by the fire department. Most of my permits that I hold for these projects, we kind of have like a condition of approval that the project needs to meet all requirements of the fire department in perpetual, you know what I'm trying to say, forever. It's a living, kind of a living document that most of the time a fire department would kind of issue a letter and recommendations, and then like at the bottom of that recommendation list, it will say subject to change based upon, doesn't even have to really say based upon anything. They're the authority having jurisdiction in this matter. So kind of whatever the fire department sees fit for their needs is what we would be amenable to for sure.
A couple of weeks ago, there was a massive lithium battery fire in San Diego. And quote, such fires are difficult to put out because lithium ion batteries generate their own oxygen. So while water-based fire extinguishers help to cool down the blazing batteries, they only rarely put out the fires. And in this case, the fires generated toxic gases, and 40 firefighters couldn't even get near the area to try to fight it. And as a matter of fact, they had to liquidate, almost liquidated. They had to evacuate neighboring neighborhoods because of this problem.
A lot of, just a little bit on that, Michael. A lot of the response of that magnitude comes from lack of planning with developers in those circumstances. So Energy Safety Response Group, I've been talking to these guys for 4 years now. They would typically be on the ground. So during our development of our emergency response plan, It's a hands-on development, and it's in conjunction with the fire department, boots on the ground. These guys come out with the fire department, do on-site training, review all of their exposures and whatnot. But part of that is kind of what's your reaction to a certain circumstance, and what is your protocol? What is nearby that might need to be notified? Who is nearby that needs to be notified? So in essence, they've never once ever recommended an evacuation, and I highly doubt they ever would. Typically that comes from a county fire marshal or what have you, that might not typically know what the plan is for the particular system that's actually going up.
Question, Tom, do you own the other battery storage system in Hadley?
No, I don't. The UMass Amherst, I want to say it was like Convergent back in the day. It might have even been NEC that they were working with back during the ACES grant.
So you can't answer who is responsible for fighting a fire, even it's on University of Massachusetts property, but it's located in Hadley. So it's whose responsibility is to fight that fire if it does occur?
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. I'm sure it's in their emergency response plan for the site.
Okay. And the other question, Bill, perhaps, I mean, there's the audience got to be saying, look, we did not want the battery storage system over the Aquifer Protection District. And now we're listening to a proposal that, do they cut in line?
We're going to get to that, Joe.
Okay.
We've gone over drainage and everything else, and that all seems to be reasonable.
Well, they've not addressed because they can't address what's going to be done with toxic gases when they're generated from the fires.
So
this is life-threatening stuff.
Whoa, stop. No, you're both out of order. Okay, we're going to get to the zoning issues next. Recently, the town meeting repassed a revised section 28, which addresses solar, battery storage, and solar. Well, they already had the solar generating fields in it, but was solar storage, energy storage was added to it, be it standalone or in association with a solar generating field. So we're going to go over some of the comments here. That's good. Some of these are going to have to be addressed strictly with the fire chief, because this system shall comply with NFPA 855. That's something that I believe, we're not an expert on in an NFPA, but that's just mentioning that it makes notice to the applicant that they've got to comply with the fire chief on that. What is the cooling liquid that you're going to be using for this stuff? You mentioned, Mike.
Was that a question to me?
Yes.
It's a ethylene glycol 50-50 mix, as we've kind of gone over.
It needs to be a non-toxic mix.
It is a non-toxic mix.
50-50 ethylene glycol is not non-toxic. I beg to disagree with you.
This formula is not found in any CAS number list and any regulation that your bylaws cite, as evidenced by the Fuss and O'Neill letter.
Okay, I disagree with that, but we'll leave that one going. No hazardous chemical shall be permitted, with exception to the liquid and the batteries. Well, we know the batteries have to have liquid. Noise produced shall comply with Mass General Law, Section 111, Chapter 111, Section 142, A through M. I don't believe that this probably generates much noise.
They can't. It depends on elevation a lot. I mean, you could put a system in a hole and it could echo. You could put a system up on a hill, and it depends. And I guess to that point, with that, compliance would bring in a sound analysis pre and post construction.
Okay. Spill containment shall be provided 110%, shall be fire resistant and heat resistant to 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to guess that your system is not heat resistant to 2,300 degrees.
It is actually pretty heat resistant. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is right now, but I know that there's some flaws in the outline of how things can be contained in your bylaw. Because if one thing says that you can't remove any earth, and then the other thing says that you have to contain runoff, so kind of catch 22.
Well, okay.
So this membrane, just so you know, the membrane's under the surface of the ground, covered by 3 to 6 inches of stone. So when fire meets stone, it goes out. It's not going to hit the rubber. So that's kind of the ideology around there. But we could always talk further on that as well.
All right. A lot of the other things I believe you comply with shall be on ground mount pads, fire patrol, energy storage. How many megawatts is this thing? 5?
This is 4948, so just about 5 megawatts.
It's under 5 megawatts. All right. You're more than 300 feet from any residential unit in use. I'm sure you're way back from the road, I believe.
Yeah, I believe the closest house is probably like just over like 520 feet, I want to say.
Yeah.
I could get the measurements, but
you will need to, there is a whole section on here about the sprinkler system. You need to bring a fire hydrant within 300 feet of the actual location of the units. And you need to have a dry standpipe that runs, let's see, what is it? Shall be supplied with a 4-inch stores style fire department connection and shall be piped in a minimum of 50 feet away from the enclosures. So
yeah, I would work with the fire chief on. Yeah, he'd mentioned the 4-inch storage when we first discussed that.
You've got a pipes that run away from each storage unit away. It's going to be longer than 50. You may have to extend it more than, I don't know if that's 50 feet. It's hard to say, but that doesn't look like it's a big deal. But the biggest one is that under the current bylaw, this is not permitted in the agricultural residential aquifer protection overlay district. It's not a permitted use. So we're waiting for approval from the Attorney General. But if the Attorney General approves the bylaw as presented, this would not be a permitted use in the current bylaw.
Understood.
And you've applied for a subdivision. Subdivision could theoretically grandfather you under the former bylaw that didn't have the energy storage system in it. But prior town council opinion is that under the prior by section 28, free standalone energy storage systems are not a permitted use in any district. So no matter which bylaw we use, the old one or the one that was recently approved, if it is passed by town meeting, you're not a permitted use in this area. I'm just laying out the zone bylaw as the presented. I'm not trying to be a mean guy or anything else. But this is the opinion of our former town council and the current zone bylaw as approved at the recent town meeting. So not a permitted use in either way. Well, it may not be, depending if the Attorney General approves the bylaw as presented. It is in their hands right now and they're reviewing it. We should have
Our town council reviewed the bylaw, correct, Jim?
the current one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was like 2 years ago, and I would strongly disagree with that currently.
With the old bylaw.
For the old bylaw.
Yeah, and then that's your opinion. We have town
agree.
council opinion, and we go by town council opinion.
Being an old decision for a former application, I would advise the town to look into whether that's still valid, because there's been a lot of municipal law unit decisions in the past since that letter that say pretty much the exact opposite of what that letter says.
Well, that's your opinion, and we have a town council opinion. We go by town council opinion right now.
From an application 2 years ago.
It's still a town council opinion.
Okay.
I mean, whether or not you like it or we like it or anybody likes it, that's their opinion, and that's what we, you know,
And I had asked at a previous hearing at some point to revisit that, and that your position is still that you don't want to revisit that with your new town council or same town council that you had used before based upon new information.
well, if it's not a permitted use under the old bylaw, it's not a permitted use. Just because the state doesn't like it doesn't change that. It's still not a permitted use, is what I'm saying. Just because it's a different, you know, nothing has changed in the bylaw to make it a permitted use.
It's a solar array.
The wording is the wording the way it is. And the only recourse anybody would have would be to appeal that decision to the courts.
So do we have to vote on this, Jim?
Well, there's so many, I guess there's a bunch of things that need to be, a few things that need to be addressed, I believe, as far as a couple of issues here. It would really be a consensus of us and Mr. Corbett that does he want a decision tonight, or does he want to try to address some of the system, the thing like the, you know, the heat resistance of his spill containment and a few other items? Does he want to address those, or would he like a decision tonight?
I would like to address a few things that we've discussed tonight, and move from there. I don't know what your thoughts are on waiting until the Attorney General gets back about your bylaw.
That's a big one, because I would like to see.
I know that's kind of like the biggest time suck, right? And I don't want to make you guys feel like that needs to happen, like this needs to be done today. It doesn't, and I totally understand where we're kind of in this weird spot. But I know that's like 90 days at a bare minimum from the Attorney General's office. So I guess it would be the pleasure of the board of whether we would want to continue to that point in time, or if you want to see this back in front of you again at that.
Well, I would like to have a decision from the Attorney General before we say no or whatever on this, because if the Attorney General says that you can't prohibit it in the Axford district, then it's a whole nother system to you. Then you comply with the current bylaw, make a few little changes here and there, and you are, it is what it is. But if the Attorney General upholds the bylaw, then it puts it into you and having to talk to your counsel and see what your next steps are. Because then we would have to turn it down, I believe.
I would agree with that consensus, Jim, and layout of items there for sure.
But since neither of us wants to really go to court and spend money that we may not have to, I would rather, the town meeting was early May. It's already been a month. So I would think we're going to have a decision probably within the next 30 to 45 days. They're usually pretty good on giving us an approval or a reply, maybe not would say an approval, but a reply back in a reasonable time within the 90, well, usually before the 90 days is up.
Yeah, I would be, just so the board knows, I'm comfortable continuing to that point in time. If I need to issue you some kind of continuance on timeline for decision, I don't know if that comes into play right now or not, Jim, but
you can request, and then you can request extensions for, as long as we are in agreement, you can extend, extend the extensions for a while and be reasonable about it. So maybe we'll put the next meeting with you on July 2nd. That's 2 days before the 4th of July. Is that okay with you? Would you rather do it to the 16th?
you want to push it out sometime, seeing as though we have some time anyway. So when we got June here,
And you suggest we continue it to September 3rd.
I had September circled on my paper, Bill, so
Okay.
I would be okay with that.
Okay, so we'll go September 3rd Obviously 6:45. And we'll have it, well, I would sure expect we have a town attorney, state.
I think the benefit of getting it out further is depending on what the Attorney General comes back with. I don't want to have Mr. Corbett go out and revise his plans if it's not going to be, if it's going to be a no-go.
Okay.
But if, let's say we get something from the Attorney General by the end of July, he'll have August to revise his plans.
Yeah, and some time to come to a couple meetings, maybe to discuss a little bit.
You can always come to the open portion of the meeting
Yeah.
with the updates and talk about things.
Yeah,
So I'll make a motion to continue to 9/3/24 at request of the applicant.
I would second that, Mark Down.
In a second, we're gonna do the old roll call vote.
Let's do the,
Pardon?
do the self-roll call.
Okay, self roll call. Maximowski, aye.
Dwyer,
Zagrodnik, aye.
Dunn?
Dunn, aye.
Sarzinski, aye.
Very good. Motion passes unanimously.
This is an idea. We just do this alphabetically.
Mike, you stole the words right out of my mouth, and I'm willing to turn the list upside down and go last.
So Tom, if you could just send me a one-sentence email to planning@Hadley.ma requesting an extension to September 3rd.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Right.
So just for consistency, do you still want to have the review of the preliminary subdivision plan tonight, or do you want to put that off to the 3rd as well?
Yeah, let's go through that. I've got Chris here. He's been here all night, so we should do
Okay.
that.
All right. Set up, please.
Oh, are you ready for me? I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah, you're next. You're back to back.
Chris, do you want to bring up plans? You want to run through that?
Yep, now I can bring that up. Let me just pull up my screen. Everybody see my screen now?
Yeah.
Just for the record, Chris Anderson with Hannigan Engineering. We're here for a preliminary subdivision plan off Breckenridge Road, land of Carl's Excavating Inc., known as Clippers Map 6A, parcel 29A. As the board is probably familiar with the property, it's currently along the frontage of the property, primarily woodland with a small access path that gains access to the rear portion of the property. It's utilized in conjunction currently with a earth moving operation. The property is located in agricultural residential district and also within the aquifer protection district. It's the intent to construct a fully compliant subdivision roadway that will provide access to 2 new lots. The road itself would be situated along the southerly property line and extend off of Breckenridge Road. The road would be approximately 260 feet long and be terminated with a cul-de-sac of 80 feet to be consistent with the subdivision regulations. The paved roadway width is shown as 22 feet. That's considered a type 1 subdivision. In addition to the plan, we have also shown in a general manner how we're going to accommodate the various utility infrastructure. At this point in time, it's shown in a general manner. We obviously have to go through the full design review with various town departments and whatnot in order to finalize the design prior to the definitive. But we're showing right now a infiltration basin located near the end of the actual subdivision roadway. This would capture the entirety of the impervious area and treat it appropriately. Due to the generally small scale of the site, we're proposing to provide one of the lots with a domestic water well as well as Title V compliant septic systems. The rear portion of the lot, quote unquote, lot number 2, would be continue to be utilized in its current fashion or future fashion. So it is as it is. And we've also started to show the preliminary landscaping requirements and whatnot in order to accommodate this. That being said, included with our submittal, we've also provided the initial environmental impacts note that we are proposing. Obviously, we'll go into greater depth once we get into the definitive state. And one note is that we would request a waiver from the board specific to the intersection of how the proposed road intersects with Breckenridge Road. Regulation requires 90 degrees. As shown, it intersects at around 79 degrees, just because of the existing layout of Breckenridge Road. The road's located on the outside of a bend, which is very advantageous relative to sight lines, which is usually the precursor of why we have the 90-degree intersection geometry. So based on the geometry of the existing road, we will still be able to provide full compliance with those sightline requirements along the roadway as it stands now at the intersection point. With that being said, if there's any comment or question from the board, I'd be more than happy to take it.
You made a comment about water. Would you replace what you said about the water being a well or something?
Yes, at this point in time, we're intending on constructing a single domestic well for lot number 1.
Which is lot number 1, the rear one?
Lot number 1 would be the front lot itself.
Yeah. If you have town water running by the street, you shall comply and connect to the town water for all lots. And where is the proposed energy storage field in relation to this field? It's the subdivision.
It would be located near the rear portion of the property.
Okay, so you're not showing the whole, you're not, okay. I see, okay. Okay. Yeah, when I'm looking at the plans, I couldn't quite figure out the lots. Now I see. All right, okay, all right, got it.
So is the battery storage system lot 2?
That lot would be considered lot 2.
So this is going to be not a very small subdivision. It's going to be a full-blown subdivision.
Correct. Yeah, this is not, this is not a very, you're right, Joe. This is a full subdivision they're applying for.
It's still only a 2-lot subdivision, but it is
correct.
A subdivision.
Yes.
And that does not, as it currently shows, it didn't look like it included the lot 2, including the outfall adjacent parcel.
You're right, Mark.
Or did I miss that?
No, you're right. That stays as it is today.
So I will make a note, as I was listening in on the previous hearing, if you will. The stormwater system for the subdivision will accommodate the subdivision itself, provide compliance with the site as it stands now. If in the future any other developments were to occur on lot number 2, obviously that would have to comply with various stormwater regulations. And in theory, typically how these kinds of projects work, if I meet compliance with my subdivision and the other property, whatever it may be in the future, complies with stormwater management, at the end of the day, stormwater management is complied with. So I know there was comment brought for relative to stormwater from the subdivision, but I want to clarify to the board, subdivision drainage system is going to accommodate the subdivision drainage. Whatever happens in the future happens in the future.
Where will the entrance be on lot 1 for the driveway?
Oh, it comes off of the
Has to-
cul-de-sac.
It would have to come off the proposed road, so we would be located in this general direction as we kind of currently have laid out the septic systems and on the frontage of the property. Obviously, with the well water supply being required to tie into the town water, there's a lot more flexibility on the location of the septic field. But we have to go through various soil testing processes to nail down that final location. It's the intent that the new driveway would come off of the proposed subdivision roadway.
What is the gradient of the proposed paved road and what is the gradient of the lot 2 southern road? Unimproved road.
Let me pull up my roadway profile real quick.
I'm just trying to figure out if that makes that back access on lot 2 steeper or if it's making it.
The roadway itself isn't that steep, but once you get to lot 2, the lot drops off pretty substantial.
Yeah.
Correct.
But it's
So
not on the
as
road.
shown on the preliminary profile, we're intending on pretty much staying below the 2.5%. That's the maximum grade we have on the subdivision. After that, it does drop off. It's still at a manageable grade in order to provide access to the rear portion of the site. Obviously, once we get into final grading and design configurations, and because it's located in close proximity to the drainage infrastructure, there will most likely not be some modification in some form or fashion to make sure that that road still functions as intended.
So that road will not be responsible for the fire truck getting to the battery storage facility. Or will it be a separate road for the battery storage facility, or will it be the subdivision road?
So the access to lot number 2 would be provided off of the proposed subdivision roadway. So the roadway would provide the adequate fire access into the subdivision itself. From there, going to the rear portion of lot number 2, fire access will have to be reviewed as part of that process.
You're gonna drive right into your proposed infiltration basin.
There's a little bit of separation horizontally from that. Typically, what we do in other subdivisions, if a stormwater feature is in close proximity to the road, if you will, typically we'll put some kind of vehicle prevention feature of some sort, be a guardrail, whatever it may be, to provide some vehicle and prevention to go into that basin area.
So your proposed infiltration basin is going to be one deep basin.
Yes.
Yes, it would be. It would have a decent cut going towards the road, but as you go towards the low end of the site, it's going to blend in with the natural topography.
Is that is the natural topography at the northern end of the basin?
Well, it is now.
Correct.
Because it's a
So
gravel.
it's going to blend in as you come towards the basin to create a much more level area for the discharge of the actual basin, so that we don't incur any additional scour at the discharge point.
Okay. What is the approximate distance from your 264 line to your 242 elevation line there on your screen?
From the 242, if you will?
Yes.
By the looks of it, it's about 175 feet, judging by the square.
Yeah, that would be a very good assessment. This is the 150 square that's required by zoning, so you're probably looking on the order of about 175.
Okay, so you're going to check, oh, better than a 10% grade there.
In Denver,
Correct.
you'll get down there fast. It's just leaving the site might
Well,
be.
no, I'm looking at, it's irrelevant to that. I'm looking at the steepness for the fire trucks.
Yeah.
So I think we're looking at two different things and we may be getting the public hearings.
Well, that may be true, Bill, but they're kind of intertwined. The reason they're putting the subdivision forward is to get to lock zoning in, if you would. And in any case, that is a road that's being shown on the subdivision plan for emergency access to something.
Exactly right, Jim, because he doesn't need that subdivision to get one building lot out of it. It's for something else.
He's trying to lock in zoning under the former, to lock it in under the former bylaw. But it's still, you got a better than a 10% grade there.
Yeah, if I may, we'll take a harder look at that as it
Yeah.
pertains to the fire access for sure.
Okay, very good. Enough said. All right. I mean, as far as the subdivision goes, yeah, you comply with zoning. It's a little bit strange, but it is in compliance.
Could we just go back to the road, Breckenridge Road end of it? And I am just trying to figure out if you have left yourself enough room to put in your interconnect.
Yes, we have taken into consideration that part of it, which is still a little bit up in the air as far as that site plan goes. But right now, it looks like we may be ending up bringing in 3-phase down the road to the end of the road here, and the interconnect may move, judging how everything goes here. I guess that's a kind of a ball of worms here. It's one thing moves, they all move, so it's kind of tough to nail everything down at once. But I hear what you're saying.
Well, and your utilities will be underground, right?
Yeah, if that's a requirement, then yes. For the utilities for
electrical.
For what?
The electrical utilities need to be underground.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll be bringing 3-phase in most likely up the road, and then making that interconnect different for the prior application that we were just talking about.
Back to Jim's point, that was a point that this is not unique with this particular project, but we always like to see the entire project, how it intertwines with drainage, with everything involved. And this is the same thing. Remember the concerns when we were building the library and the senior center at the same time. So it is a good idea to get the entire picture and see how it works out.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Joe. And I think during the definitive phase of this, we'll definitely incorporate that so we can get a broad picture of everything.
Okay. I mean, as far as the basic preliminary subdivision, I mean, I don't have any heartburn with the what's you said, 79 degrees, Tom? Roughly?
I believe so, Chris, right? 79?
Correct, yeah, 79 degrees.
I don't see that. I mean, I can see because of the road, if you try to bring it in at 90, you may, for lack of a better term, obscure some of your sight lines.
Correct. It does obscure some of the sight lines, and also in conjunction, you start creating a weird roadway geometry as well. So, being on the outside of a curve, or figurative curve, if you will, of the road, sight lines usually are not an issue. Because you're on the outside, you can see in all directions pretty well.
I mean, except for, I'll just make a general comment, assuming the things don't fall in line and everything gets approved, the biggest traffic issue you're going to see is during construction. Once this is built, everything is built out, there's not going to be much traffic on this road, even if there is 2 houses put on this property. So,
right.
Correct. Yeah, no, the traffic for this kind of a subdivision is, I don't want to say negligible, but pretty close. in the grand scheme.
Chris, just out of interest, what is the frontage on the circle for parcel 2? Do you know?
200.01 feet. 200 is required by zoning.
Okay. That would explain the interesting angle. Sure. Okay.
Good pickup, Mark. All right.
Now, because of, I'm gonna say, because of the drainage basin, we'd have to look at the zone by the subdivision and things, but I'm not sure lot 2 qualifies as a building lot.
Relative to access to the lot itself.
Well, the capability of constructing a house on that lot and the so-called, I'm gonna look at the subdivision regs and everything else, but there may be something in there about topography. It's a mighty steep lot. That's a mighty steep cliff to try to put a house on.
Oh. They want to do a LA style cliffside house. Do we preclude them?
And watch it go down a hill in a heavy rain. Okay, but anyways,
I'll review that as part of the definitive process. I don't remember seeing that when I read through the regulations, but I'll do a second look at that just for.
I'm not sure if there is or not. It's been a while since I've looked through those things.
In the old regulations, you're right, Jim. It did have a depiction of some buildings that were not allowed as lots that were not allowed because you couldn't put a building on them. We'll see.
From a preliminary plan, I guess it's, I don't know.
Well, do we have a timetable to approve it?
Not if the applicant requests an extension. It may be worthwhile to do that for both.
This is a perfect situation. This is
Request an extension September 3rd for this one, just like the other one. And he may not even need this depending on what happens.
Yes.
I think the question becomes a timeline relative to.
Chris, sorry. The landowner would like he was in front of you guys already with the subdivision, which is half the reason why we're here with you for a subdivision as well. So the landowner has a interest in subdividing this lot regardless of the project moving forward.
Okay.
So this is going to be handled, I don't want to say separately, but in the matter of a time frame a little bit differently. So if we can move forward with this, I'd like to move forward with this.
Well, you really wouldn't need the subdivision to carve out a single or two lots.
I don't know the landowner's personal preference. I know he came in front of you guys before for it. I think maybe last year or maybe longer than that ago. So this is just something that they saw value in their land. So this is just something that an exercise that we went through, and this is what we wanted to do with him. And here we are.
So you're saying we cannot postpone it till the 15th?
No, and maybe we.
They may, if we were to approve this as a preliminary, they still have to come in for a definitive.
Correct, but it's the timetable between the preliminary plan and the definitive plan. 90 days.
We would have a plan turned around pretty quickly, most likely. I don't know. Chris could speak to timeline on that. I guess a little bit more. I have high hopes for Chris.
That's the thing. It's how will this dovetail into the battery storage system? So
I think the idea here is to get the subdivision done, situated. The subdivision's plan regardless of the project that we were talking about for the special permit. So timetable wise, we would like to get this plan done. And then if we can show you during the definitive what that looks like on the plan. And then once that special permit is granted, maybe in the future, that would be incorporated into this now lot line.
And I would also piggyback off of what Tom just said. It's the preliminary plan considered separate of the special permit. And the purpose of the preliminary plan is to get the initial feedback from the board in order to prepare the actual definitive. So, we've gotten a couple, comments and concerns raised by the board. It's the intent that, part of the general process to address that and then come back with the board with a much more comprehensive plan that addresses the initial comments and concerns. Relative to timelines, there is the 7-month time frame from the submission of a preliminary for the submission of a definitive. And I would have to look into timelines on when the submittal was officially made versus when that following meeting would occur, because we want to make sure we have enough time to vet out all the required design criteria for the site in order to prepare the definitive subdivision plan.
Yeah, and I think at this point we have comments from the board to move forward to a definitive phase. But that's just my stance.
And preliminary does not constitute an approval of the project itself. It's just a finding mission, for a lack of a better term, for the board.
Okay, well, it basically meets the requirements of a preliminary plan, so I guess accordingly, we should give it a preliminary approval.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plan based upon the following findings. It is in compliance with the Town of Hadley subdivision regulations. It provides adequate access to the lots in the subdivision, adequate provision for lessening congestion at the intersection, with a waiver to allow 79-degree intersection in place of the 90-degree intersection. Adequate provision for reducing danger to life and limb in the operation of motor vehicles. Adequate provision for sewer, drainage, underground utilities, and access for municipal services. Adequate provision for ensuring sanitary conditions. And in compliance with Hadley zoning bylaws.
Okay, that is the motion. Do we
I
have
can find Mark Dunn.
Would be a second.
all in favor?
Do
Aye.
we have a second?
I gave a second, Bill.
Mark seconded it. All in favor? Roll call by person.
Mark Dunn, aye.
Dwyer, aye.
Maximovsky, aye.
Tarazinski, aye.
Zagrodnik, aye.
How about that? Alphabetical works.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
I thought we could go by seniority, but okay.
I just wanted to make a note that the last time I updated my preliminary subdivision form of vote was prior to Mr. Dunn's joining the planning board 5 years and a few weeks ago.
It's been a while.
You still have Johnny on there?
Yes. Well, no longer. It's been updated.
Okay.
Okay.
How many votes did you get, Mark?
Thank you all for your time tonight.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chris.
As soon as we Tom, as soon as we hear something from the Attorney General, I will forward the approval letter, whatever we get to you, so that we can go accordingly.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jim. Thank you all.
Okay. Anything, Mr. Quinlan, do you have anything? No. I do have one invoice to pay. Pay the Gazette $446.32 for the site plan approval that we have scheduled for June 18th which is the, was it, I think it's 220 Russell Street.
I'll make a motion to pay the Gazette for 4632.
Second,
Second by Mr. Sarzinski. All in favor? Aye. Roll call vote.
Done, I.
Dwyer, aye.
Maximowski, aye.
Tarzinski, aye.
Roddick, aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Isn't that easier?
Actually, it works out pretty cool. It just shows we all know our alphabet.
The 100th monkey figures it out, Mike.
What?
The 100th monkey finally figures it out.
I realized that I forgot to put an item on the agenda to reorganize the
I
planning.
knew that. That's
So that will,
Good
we'll
stuff.
put, Mark as chairman at our next meeting.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. You're gonna get me divorced before I even hit my first anniversary.
Okay. I have nothing else. Anybody have anything?
I have nothing else.
Okay. If not, motion to adjourn.
Second,
Motion second.
By Dwyer, second by Sarsinski, I done.
Dwyer, aye.
Maximowski, aye.
Tarzinski, aye.
Roddick, aye.
Motion
I think we got a song going
Motion
here.
is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Kyle.
Right over, Zeke.
Thank you, Alex. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.